Welcome to Sex in the News. We are the Siegel Brothers. Tonight we're bringing you stories, one from the UK, which would classify forced conversion therapy as a criminal offense. Another back to Texas. The Texas abortion ban seems to be handing abusers a new tool with which to control their victims. And an apology from Jerry Seinfeld over an uncomfortable sexual aspect in B movie. Welcome back, my brother.
Welcome back to
Hello,
you, my brother.
And welcome back to Sex in the News. Happy Sunday.
Yes, indeed. So some interesting stories for today. I like this first one.
Yes, indeed.
I really do.
Again, being progressive. Maybe we'll catch up someday. But the British Prime Minister for Women and Equality's Liz Truss introduced proposals Friday that would criminalize conversion therapy. Many of our viewers don't know what that is. That is any type of so-called psychotherapy which aims to change a person's sexual orientation.
To correct a person's sexual orientation.
Yeah. It's usually not straight to gay.
Right.
So these are typically religious-oriented therapists in conservative parts of the country who, parents bring their kids. My kid can't be gay, please fix them, they're broken. Sometimes these kind of pray the gay away camps, lots of different methods fall under the heading of conversion therapy.
Some are even abusive. Some are violent. Some of these conversion programs, it's like the ridiculous, horrible, abusive thing that guys would do to, and they find out a woman's a lesbian. Oh, you're a lesbian? Well, I will rape you, and that'll show you what you're missing. That'll change you.
You're not gay. You just ain't had this, and I'll just screw the gay out of you.
Yeah, exactly. And some of these conversion programs and conversion professionals, that's kind of what they're doing. They are violating and committing violence against these people to try to correct their gayness.
Yeah. And like we talked about in this week's Sex Talk with our friend Dr. Karen in Jamaica, this is astounding, this little factoid at the end of the piece, that 5 countries,
only 5
globally, only 5 countries, Brazil, Ecuador, Germany, Taiwan, and Malta. Right? Have some form of a ban on conversion therapy. And I remember several years ago, there was a kind of open letter written to the United States from the United Nations Commission on Torture, basically publicly asking why is this still legal in all but, how many states have?
4?
4 states in the United States, I think. New Jersey's
3
all
or 4.
I remember.
But not many. Not many.
I'm sure it's not illegal in Texas.
No, I'm sure it's encouraged in Texas.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, I'm sure in Texas they're arresting people for being gay and forcing them into these programs.
And this is exactly the kind of thing that homophobes have always held up. They say, "Oh, look at the suicide rate. This is evidence that these people have mental illness."
Right.
When in fact, what drives gay and lesbian kids to suicide more than anything else is lack of acceptance by their families, by their church congregations, by their, by their community. Right.
The bullying,
Yeah.
the harassment.
Being gay is not a mental illness. Homophobia is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a collective societal mental illness.
That's right. And so for all of you who do kind of think that way, stop bullying, stop harassing, stop torturing LGBT plus kids, and see how that suicide rate will drop.
Right. Yeah. Maybe if Texas would let that trans boy wrestler wrestle some boys instead of girls, then let's see some progress, because I would bet a paycheck that he is going to kick some ass.
Yeah.
Instead of all this, we have biological boys beating up girls. No, let this boy wrestle some boys.
Right.
And then they'll all shut up.
That's right.
So, Why is Texas...
Speaking of Texas.
Why is Texas living in our Sex and the News lately?
Well, because Texas has always been America's problem child.
Well, with Florida. It's
Well,
the two problem children.
Remember, Texas at one point seceded from the United States.
Yeah, and it's still a point of pride,
Right,
The Lone
exactly.
Star State. Well, we, of course, you have to be living under a rock or in a cave somewhere to not have heard lots and lots in the news the past few months about this ridiculous, completely unconstitutional ban on abortion in Texas that is making its way for Supreme Court judicial review. Right?
They're debating it right now, whether or not it can be challenged.
But this piece by Alana Viglanos on Huffington Post talks about a different angle that I think most people hadn't thought of before, that this kind of law has unseen consequences, and what she's written about is how this can be just another tool with which men can control women.
Yeah. In fact, it speaks to what has been referred to as the intersection of abortion access and intimate partner violence. Right?
In that it replicates control over women's bodies and strips away their autonomy. Right? State-sanctioned reproductive violence.
Yep, exactly. And that's part of that's that whole thing that again doesn't get enough a conversation about this idea of what's called reproductive violence or reproductive coercion. And there's a pretty high, about 25% of women in general, right? Just across the board, not just in abusive relationships, but about 25% of women have reported some kind of pressure when it comes to their reproductive
either controlling, forcing someone to use contraception that they don't want to, or forcing someone not to.
Right.
Forcing a woman into an abortion, or forcing a woman not to.
Right.
Even we talked about recently, some of these states proposing absurd laws where rapists have some say.
Right. Have paternal rights.
If the rape results in a pregnancy. How barbaric and primitive can we be to argue in court that a woman can't get an abortion after a rape without getting the consent of the rapist?
Right.
And if the rapist doesn't want her to have an abortion, she can't because it's his kid too. Like what?
It's insane.
In what crazy world?
It's absolutely insane.
Does this make sense to people?
Right. So again, what they're talking about, in addition to the things that you had named, the violence, the threats, the coercion, there's also the forced birth control or prohibited from being on birth control, which is right up there with financial control, who you can see. A lot of times they're cut off from their family. So this really, I think, elevates a lot of the power that particularly abusive partner, most of which are men, not all victims of abuse are female, not all perpetrators of abuse are male, but most of them end up kind of in that dynamic.
And this is a real thing where a law can contribute to a woman's being controlled. Unlike what I thought was one of the most ridiculous, absurd objections I ever heard against Plan B. There was that stupid protest that if Plan B was allowed to be over the counter, then rapists can keep it around the house.
That's right.
And cover their tracks, right? So if a rapist rapes a woman, he'll then force her to take Plan B so she won't get pregnant and bust his rape.
Right. Because we know that that's the worst part of rape.
And that's what rapists are thinking.
That's what they're thinking.
When
right.
they're,
Right.
Again, it's like there's a kindergarten class making policy in some room somewhere in Washington.
I would settle for, I even prefer a kindergarten class doing this because I think there'd be a lot less stupidity.
Well, our third story fits right in.
Although it's a
right?
good kind of stupidity.
This is something that kindergartners can stop laughing long enough to school adults on. Right?
Yes.
I can't believe this. This is right up our alley, right? We just can't believe that this is a news piece that Jerry Seinfeld on Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show acknowledged that there were viewers of the Bee movie apparently upset after all these years over what appeared to be subtle hints of a romantic or sexual relationship forming between the bee and the woman who make up the film's two lead roles. Mm-hmm. Right? He said, I apologize for what seems to be a certain uncomfortable, subtle sexual aspect. This was a cartoon.
Right.
A Pixar animated.
Right. That they have to come out and say, it really wasn't intentional.
That people thought, oh my God, it's bestiality.
Right.
There's sexual overtones between this relationship between a bee and a woman.
Right. Now, I'll tell you what I object to the most with all of this. How this is at a point where, okay, right, there is a relationship, right? They're having a picnic, they're drinking wine. I'm okay with the idea of, oh, maybe it's encroaching on a romantic relationship. But why does that have to automatically now be defined as sexual? Right? Can a bee and a woman have a platonic relationship? Can't they be friends? Right? Is it really impossible? If you have a bee and a woman together, does it always have to be sexual?
Well,
That's just a very limited imagination.
Well, that's where our childish relationship with sexuality goes, right?
It's crazy.
The bee seems
crazy.
to have a thing for the girl. We don't really want to pursue that as an idea in children's entertainment. That's what Jerry Seinfeld was forced to say.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's really no end to the stupidity. And this is really right up there. It truly is. But again,
14 years since that movie came out, and it's still making news.
Well, it didn't make news the first time because now it's got a whole new woke audience.
Yeah.
Who's watching this?
I guess.
And obviously uncomfortable with any type of human insect type of relationships. And for our final piece, we like to end with one of our favorite segments called Poetic Justice. Right? And what is our Poetic Justice?
Well, just a chance to call out hypocrisy and people that deserve our recognition for being blowhards. And
exactly.
A-holes.
Right. This week, we are going to honor somebody who's now running for a Senate seat in Missouri. Some of you may not be familiar with the name, but I'm sure you're familiar with this person. Mark McCloskey, who is a personal injury attorney who told an audience last week at a speech that he was giving that he believes a 13-year-old rape and incest victim should not be allowed to have an abortion. And he stated that, well, he had a client who was raped at 13 and gave birth to a child who now has a master's degree. Right? Now, when he was pressed on this, right, saying he didn't believe in any exceptions for abortion, and when he was giving some stump speech or whatever in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, somebody in the audience asked him the question, and they confronted him directly. And they said, so you would force a 13-year-old who's raped by a family member to keep that baby? And he's very proud of his response. He basically said, and the way he's describing it, and I said, yeah, and more than that, I've got a client. I've got a client who was raped by an uncle when she was 13 years old. Had the child, she finished high school, finished college, got a master's degree. That child she would have aborted, finished high school, finished college, now has a master's degree. And I think is wanted for murder in 12 states. I mean, that whole idea, okay, so what, because he knew somebody who was raped at 13, kept that baby, and that baby actually was able to succeed in life. So that's a justification for nobody to be in that position. Right? And again, this idea, well, what if they grow up and they have a master's degree? Right? Again, my first question, what if they grow up to be even worse than Hitler? Right? That doesn't get part of that equation.
And again, these pro-life people, as you started to say, we might not recognize the name Mark McCloskey, but I'm sure most folks remember the image of Mr. and Mrs. McCloskey standing outside their home, armed to the teeth, ready to shoot Black Lives Matter protesters.
Who were just walking down the street, not even looking in their direction.
They felt threatened.
Right, because there was a black person on the street.
Ready to use lethal force. So tell me how pro-life these people are.
That's right, and they were both charged, and they were both convicted of that.
And pardoned.
Right, but Mike Parsons, the governor of Missouri, pardoned them.
Celebrities now among that set.
Soon to be a senator, no doubt, in Missouri.
Well, hopefully not.
Well, it's Missouri.
And the midterms.
Yeah. But again, hopefully not. But this is the kind of person that is now running into politics. And that's actually nothing new when you look at the kind of people that are running for office in these places. It's kind of worrisome. Right? It really is. So. Mark McCloskey, who believes that children who are raped and impregnated by that rape should be forced...
Incestuously by a family member?
Incestuously or otherwise, right? Should be forced to carry that child to term, right? Which, of course, most 13-year-olds are capable of doing anyway.
Yeah, ready to be someone's
mother.
So
safe and non-threatening to be pregnant.
Yeah.
Right? Not realizing that short of getting hit by a bus, it's the most traumatic thing the human body can experience. Look about pregnancy and childbirth. So a 13-year-old who is in the highest level of trauma that she could possibly be in should be happy about having that baby.
Yeah, because it might go to college someday.
That's right,
and
exactly. And wouldn't she be proud? What a proud mom that'll be.
What an idiot Missouri might have in the Senate.
Truly. So for being such an idiot and such a hypocrite, because you pretend that you have people's best interest at heart, right? So we, with relish, give you our traditional poetic justice salute. And with that, right, wraps up another edition of Sex in the News. We are the Siegel Brothers. Thank you for watching.